All right, guys. So coming up here, we're going to have a panel discussion about change management led by John Reich of Beck. And we're going to have Phill with XL Construction and Jan Beran from Beckenhauer. So come on out, guys.
I need to get out of the way, though. Can I try the hand seat? We talked about it. It's not quite as exciting as I thought it was going to be.
Afternoon, everyone. My name's John Reich. I'm with Customer Success at Beck. So we'll just go down the road and Phill can introduce himself.
Yeah, I'm Phill. I'm from XL Construction. I've been at XL for about almost 21 years, and when I started XL, there was just me and another guy, but we've grown considerably since then, so we've seen lots of change to this discussion of change. And so, yeah, just looking forward to this little chat here.
And I'm Jan Beran. I'm with Beckenhauer Construction. We're a small firm, small GC, CM design builder based out of Nebraska, and I'm actually pretty humbled because I think I've been keeping score, because when you're the little dog in the room, you always size up the big dogs, and so far I think the littlest dog represented on stage here tonight, but I think that also is a testament to how invested Beck is into the industry as a whole, not just chasing the big dogs and trying to partner with them. I've been in the industry for about 12 years, Beckenhauer for about 5. Before that, I was a banker before jumping onto a concrete crew, so if anybody wants to buy me a beer later, I'll tell you that story.
And for those who don't know, we have like a Mount Rushmore for the Beck community. Brent's on it, Taymor's on it, Jan's like the third head on that. So if you go in the community, just about every post you see is from one of those 3 have commented on it at some point. So just our topic today, we're going to talk about change orders. Woo! Everyone's favorite topic.
Change orders?
Kidding. No,
I was going to say.
We're not going to talk about change orders. We decided to actually take a different tact and talk about change in the industry and how Precon has changed. So we're going to start there. Can each of you describe how you have seen the pre-construction industry change over the last 10 years?
Yeah, I can have some thoughts on that. So what I've seen over the last 10 years or so is the clients that are traditionally or historically hard bid clients, and this touched on a little bit earlier. It was interesting to see some of those responses in terms of who's hard bidding versus negotiated. But a lot of our traditional hard bid clients, and even those that awarded projects, but perhaps it was late in the design, in the CD phase, they've moved to this awarding early, best value approach, getting GCs on board really early, even before the design is done. And so that's basically most of our projects. We get involved super early, the proverbial napkin sketch. But that really lends itself to this protracted pre-con period. And the client is expecting more and more from pre-construction, right? They're looking to us to really have input on design, bring in the trade partners on board at the appropriate time and leveraging them. And so really I guess that's really one of the major differences. And so we've had to obviously adjust to that and provide those services as the expectations and the enhancements of pre-construction from our clients has demanded it.
Yeah, I guess anybody who's spent any amount of time conversing with me will attest that I get meta pretty quickly. I tend to categorize and conceptualize and generalize, and what I've seen over the last dozen years or so in Precon is we really went from that necessary evil, right? We need to know how much the project costs, and as Phill has spelled out, the responsibilities have grown tremendously, but I see it kind of diverging along 3 different almost career paths, where we have that cost engineering career path where you're doing the quantity takeoff, the cost estimating, some value engineering, but then there's also this emerging kind of project development role that's becoming more normalized, where we're getting involved in the BIM workflows. We're working as a design assist with the design team itself, working on constructability and that sort of stuff. And then there's also just the general pre-con management, making sure the team is operating as a whole, meeting some of those milestone schedules, making sure the owner is making decisions when they need to in order to make sure we hit the go date, the shovel in the ground date. And even listening to everybody talk today, everybody's department is kind of divvying up those roles. There's not necessarily 3 silos in the departments yet, but we're all trying to tackle those in slightly different ways. And when I was kind of parsing that out, I asked myself, why are we all tracking down these? Like, what makes these uniquely pre-con? And taking another step higher, at a higher level, we get this boring pre-construction name for our industry subsector, where the architects get this cool, like, building design, MEP engineering, they get all these cool monikers. They're selling this really awesome idea, right? This amazing hospital or university building, or maybe just a small retail outfit to help an owner achieve their dreams. They're selling this really awesome idea, or even they're just selling a dream. And then our field teams, whether they're field operations, construction management, whatever your group calls them, they're selling the product. And so I asked myself, like, what is pre-construction actually selling? Because our role tends to bridge the idea with reality, and what that requires us to actually sell, and it's been said a few times today already, is we're selling trust. And that's what was missing before we all started developing these pre-construction groups. But whether or not we actually knew that that's what we were trying to accomplish, we were really just answering the call. And so I think we're really this ethereal, somewhere between the idea and the reality, just providing that level of trust for internal and external teams that what we're hoping to get done is actually going to get done.
Okay. So on that trust, how do you feel like the technology over the past 10 years, I know I'm skipping one of the questions on our sheet, sorry. We're going to wing it. How do you feel that technology has helped you build that trust with design teams and with ownership groups?
I think the push toward the cloud has definitely helped us out in being able to provide a layer of transparency that enables trust. It's hard to trust somebody when you can't see what they're doing or see their notes or understand where they're coming from. And so the more we can get our information out to the cloud, the easier it's going to be to share and provide that layer of transparency, even if there is some permission controls and read-write access and things like that. The internal and external teams being able to recognize why decisions were made, or why it costs this, or why it's going to take that long, or how did we even get here with this design, is a kind of a game changer for our industry, our little subsector that is.
Yeah, and I think a lot of those tools that we've discussed today and have been highlighted, we've gone away from these more insular tools, I guess you could say, like Excel, where it's just you working in it. We have these proprietary softwares, they're cloud-based, right? Join that we learn about, we use that a lot, and that's a great tool for us. And it's all open to the client and to the team. They all have access to this stuff, and so I think that just lends itself, one, to it being open, to it being transparent to our clients, and so they get that level of trust. They're seeing what we're doing. They're seeing how the sausage is made a little bit, as mentioned earlier. And so, they have that trust in us even before you kind of get together with them. And the other part is even internally, like Destiny, you're able to work, multiple estimators are able to work in the same estimate. So even internally, you have that collaboration, being able to work together. So you get that extra trust even amongst your own team members too. You sort of build that strong, close trust and team. So yeah, it's been crucial that way.
Just so everyone knows, if you have questions that come up, I believe, hopefully, we've got the Mentimeter up and running. I'll monitor up here, so if anything comes up, we'll ask the questions as we go. Okay, so on the technology front also, past probably, if anyone's been to the APE conference, Advancing Precon Conference, probably 4 or 5 years ago, historical cost became like the #1 topic that everyone talked about there. It just seemed like everyone realized we're behind the 8 ball. We have all this data we haven't been mining. So how have you guys started leveraging that historical cost movement, or are you leveraging that historical cost information?
Yeah, I mean, as a company, we've made a big push for that over the last few years. We've set kind of expectations. We've set what is expected in terms of what's input and tracked up front. And so, we've been training ones to make sure things are input correctly, right? Again, it was mentioned garbage in, garbage out. So you have to make sure that the things that you're going to want to track, it's all set up out the gate. So there's been a big push for that. What's my other thoughts here? Yeah, we've really even kind of designated a data manager who really manages that, kind of leaving it to chance or leaving it to multiple people we found didn't really work. So we have someone who's kind of dedicated to making sure that things are tracked, and then it gets input into the database, and so we can pull that data. So yeah, that's kind of been an effort of ours, trying to be able to track that. And the clients are appreciating it for sure. And even internally too. There's that cross between ops and Precon. They need data from us, we need data from them. And it kind of feeds the kind of work we chase too, when you're able to look at what you're successful at and who you're working with and that kind of thing. So, that data has been crucial for us.
Yeah, a few years ago, we kind of realized that we were behind the 8 ball a little bit before our first Advancing Precon conference. And so we had started talking about it, and then going to Advancing Precon, we had some good conversations with people, trying to learn, like, what do we need to be doing to make this happen? You can't just have all your data in one place and then click a button and hope it works. And so over the last few years, we've been really conscious about establishing some higher level data standards. And we've kind of seen a lot of that alluded to in some of the earlier presentations about how you're classifying your projects, regions, delivery methods, all that kind of stuff. All of that we were really intentional to warehouse, even down to the recording the architect within our estimating database, so that we can point to the owners and say, look, when that architect's involved, the cost goes up. Yeah, everybody knows. We could probably list the same names.
How does that receive? Just,
As long as the architect's not in the room, they appreciate it. And so for a long time, we were just collecting this data intentionally without really being able to use it, because we didn't have enough of a track record to provide the reliability in the stats. But just this year, we've started leveraging our historical cost database. In large part thanks to that intentionality. It hasn't required a whole lot of rework within the data itself to make it usable for things like early conceptual estimating, or even just giving an owner some benchmarks when we're talking, early, preconceptual conversations of, like, what should I expect for a cost? We can pull project types up, and those are indexed according to a building cost index that we track within the Power BI dashboard. And it really provides that layer of transparency. And we have plans for rolling out further enhancements as we go, so that we can continue to leverage our historical data even through schematic estimating, so that we're not doing a whole lot of takeoff. But we've been really intentional about thinking about how the data is going to work long term, rather than just saying, okay, what data do we need today?
And some of our clients, I don't know if less sophisticated is the term, but I'm involved in a lot of education work, and so when we go to meetings and present estimates, some of the people making the decisions are teachers, right? They're on the school board, and they don't have any real knowledge of construction. And so again, just going to this thought of trust, this data has been proved useful to be able to kind of show them that the numbers we're giving them, it has, how that benchmarks to other projects. And that can save a lot of discussion and a lot of back and forth, and it gives them confidence that what we're presenting is kind of in line with everything else, right? But you wouldn't have that unless you make these efforts up front to capture that.
Okay, so we're going to go off script now. I'm going to respond to some of the things you guys just said. So on the topic of actual change management in terms of design changes and things like that, to me, Precon is always like, we aren't just estimating, we are moving into more of telling a story of what changed and how it changed and how that impacted the job. So what tools or what means do you guys use to be able to tell that story to the unsophisticated client who doesn't know that every piece of sheet metal costs whatever it costs? I don't even remember anymore. But how do you tell that story so they can understand that their decisions are having a cost impact on the job?
Yeah, I mean, for us, the way we kind of do our pre-con is obviously we have the design milestones that we produce estimates at. And then historically, we've used Excel to kind of manage those decisions that are made between those design milestones. As I mentioned, we've recently been using Join, again, which has been good for us. And what I like about that is it enables you to, as these decisions come up, as you go to the meetings, client says, I don't know, I want to change all the ceilings from ACT to drywall. You can put that in there, put a little cost to it. And again, that gives them kind of real time what impact that is having to the previous budget that we gave them, right? And so you end up with, a big long list of changes, not necessarily all ups, but there's downs too, ups and downs, and you can bring other kind of VE and ideas to the project. All that gets tracked. And so they really know where the estimate is at during, in between those design milestones. And so, but then obviously once we get to the next design milestone, you do an update, and the goal is that that estimate matches where you are at with your tracker. So that's really how we manage those decisions. Is that kind of the answer to your question, how we manage those decisions between the design milestones?
Yeah, for us, it kind of depends on the project. On smaller scale projects, we'll use kind of a combination of Excel and Word to just kind of create this narrative, and the end result looks not quite as fancy as the demo I saw of Join a couple weeks ago. But on larger projects that are a little bit more integrated, or the design team is being a little bit more collaborative and helpful on providing models on a regular basis, sometimes as often as weekly iterations, we will track. We will keep a running estimate updated as often as possible, so that when we come to the meetings, we can say, and here are the changes that were made from the last iteration, and here's kind of where we stand on a project total. Owner, are you okay with that? Do you want to spend another $20 million? Those types of things. So it kind of depends on the project for us.
Okay, and I'm just going to plug Melissa's design evolution log. Just in my experience in Precon, you go in with a budget control log, everyone's eyes glaze over. They're like, whatever, we're talking about budget. No one gives a crap about that, except for the owner who actually is paying for it. Design team leaves the room at that point. If you go in with the design evolution log or design decision log, all of a sudden they seem to get a lot more interested. That's just my 2 cents. So, and thank you guys. You have bailed me out. You've put some questions in. If you like the questions that are there, upvote them and I'll ask them next. All right, so you mentioned having someone dedicated to managing your cost history. Are they on your Precon team, your database team? Is it full-time?
They're on our Precon team. He's
Do you have
sitting
a
over there
database team?
smoking away. So I don't think he works on it full-time from what I know. No, he's not full-time. But he has obviously assigned responsibilities that he has to keep on top of. But yeah, it's not a full-time position.
I am that guy for our company, among many other hats. I could make it full-time if my leadership would allow.
I think that's a universal sentiment across just about every company out there. I don't think anyone has a full-time cost history guy, or very rare do. Okay, how do you bridge the gap from no or unproven data to the valuable full-grown cost history?
I'm not sure what that means, yeah.
How do you bridge the gap from where you don't really have any reliable data you can use to a full-blown, reliable cost history database?
When you're producing an estimate, do you think that's what that means? I'm not sure.
So like Jan was saying, they before didn't have that history and that database to look at that he could then apply to a new project. How do you get from not having it to down the road where you've structured your data and it's usable and applicable into a new situation?
Yeah, so basically he's asking about what did we do before we had that integrated cost history, and when we maybe have a gap, like say we're expanding into a new market sector, and we don't have that data, what do we do? There's a few things that we can do on the analytics side that are somewhat hit or miss. It ends up being a lot of phone a friend, as far as subcontractor help goes. Like, hey, like when we're looking to step into a new market, hey, we're looking at a new life sciences building. Tell us about it. We need to put a budget together. Help us out, sub. We'll take you to lunch.
I guess my answer would be, we just have to do it manually. It would be just a matter of, calling up some PMs or the PXs and, hey, have we done any jobs like this? And when was it? And then you have to dive back into the folders and find it. And, it was at the, anyway, it was a big, long, convoluted mess, right? And then, so doing it as you go is the much wiser course for sure, obviously.
And I'm just going to kind of echo a theme that Stuart said earlier. Like, we're all here. Like, everyone here, I think, is fairly interested in cost history. And just because we are technically competitors, I mean, I know Beck never competed with Jan on any projects. So, like, if Brent wants to call Jan to get information about a project or vice versa, go ahead and do that. We have people aren't necessarily your direct competitors that you can probably call, and I don't think anyone here is going to begrudge giving some, rudimentary information away that might help you out. All right, next question. How do you sell a new process or tool like adding historical identifiers to new estimates to your team, knowing that there will be a learning curve that may slow down your temporary efforts?
Much like we design a building project, right? That lean construction mentality is begin with the end in mind, and so I try to communicate to whether it's an end user or leadership team or anybody, any stakeholder that's involved. I try to communicate what the potential impact, what the goal of it's going to be, get them sold on that idea before I really tell them how much work I'm going to put on their plate. Because when people believe in the goal, they're much more willing to do the work.
Plus, you hope what you're rolling out is an improvement, right? So it's going to make their life easier. That's the plan. So, yeah, surely highlighting those and making them see, as we mentioned, what the goal is and then what benefit they're going to get from it, and how things hopefully were easier for them. Focus on that.
Long term, it'll be easier.
Yeah,
Might
exactly.
be a little harder this week.
Yeah.
Okay. So what tips do you have for round-tripping as-built data back to pre-construction and your cost history?
Ooh, well, that's a good one. Yeah, I mean, our cost data is pulled. It's typically pulled from the GMP, so not from completed construction. Normally, because there's things that can pollute that data. So yeah, we pull our cost data from when we've bid the job out, and it's per the plans, right? That becomes kind of the line in the sand for our data. I don't think we have a mechanism that really goes back and once the job is built, capture that data that I know of.
Yeah, we're kind of in the same boat right now too, where we're leveraging the contract estimates for our historical data at the moment, but we are actively working on a more round tripping of the data through our accounting system. And one of the big steps that we took in that was really taking a deep dive into our activity codes that feed into the accounting system, and sorting through, like, again, what are our end goals? What are we trying to accomplish? We want to know who did it, what it was, and where it was in the building project, along with some higher level project classifications. But with that in mind, again, we're going to be laying the groundwork, even though we're not reaping the benefits, probably for a year or two, to be able to take a Power BI dashboard, point it where it used to be pointing to our cost estimates. We could easily spin that off and point it to our accounting system and produce largely the same results with much more finite accuracy.
All right, so Phil, this one I know you're going to have some good thoughts on. What new tool has had the biggest impact for you, positive or negative? I see in your notes you have email, godsend, or curse.
Yeah,
So
email's old news, right? But I think I put jury still out whether that's a godsend or a curse. I mean, it depends on which side you are of the email, right? That's a good question, though. Which tool? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you want to fill some time while I think about it?
Sure. Yeah, I don't mind filling anybody's time. So, yeah, I came from the financial sector originally, and when it comes to technology, finance is like far and ahead of construction, and especially back 12, 15 years ago. All the data was already there. It was connected. The tools, the software, everything. You had it all. And it was easy. And so when I came into construction, I kind of felt like I was taking a step back on that front. But I realized after a while that a lot of that had to do with just the complexity, the low margins, all that stuff feeds into a slower adoption process. But what really is a game changer for me is how cheap and available cloud computing is, because that's really enabling us to distribute innovation. So that you don't have a couple of big software names that you go to for your solution and you're just kind of stuck with it forever. You can kind of piecemeal the ideals. We've seen and heard from Join and Toggle, and there's tons of other outfits out there, Beck Tech included, that they're going to solve a problem. And as long as we can get that data to talk to each other, that the cloud computing component of technology has really open the floodgates, especially for smaller contractors that can't afford to build a solution in-house.
So yeah, I don't know. I was thinking as you were talking there, I don't know whether there's like this one tool that, that I could say, but there's a couple of things. And again, it was touched on a couple of times today, was the takeoff. Being able to do things on your computer that way electronically versus, I remember having and I'm not that old, believe it or not, but it doesn't seem that long ago. I was doing the digital, doot all day, and with the highlighters, but that's all gone away. So being able to do all my takeoff, I think that's had a major impact. And then recently, with the Destiny software, being able to, we struggled for years with, in Timberline, doing our estimate, and then there was this whole manual thing of putting all the summaries together into Excel. So a fairly recent thing for us, we've already had Destiny 2-3 years here, but we've got our summaries all set up, and to be able to just do your estimate and then kind of punch a button and effectively get your summaries out of that. And to be able to punch it out in various different ways, different formats, different sorts, and all the stuff that you can do with the information now. That manipulation that you can do, I think that's one of the biggest things.
All right, well, we've got one more question here, and I held this to the end because it's more of a shameless plug for what I do, but would you find that it is helpful to have a person dedicated to training for Join or Destiny for new employees coming into your organization? So just FYI on the Destiny side, 2 of us are dedicated basically to that task of making sure you guys can use the product better. So that's Doug, Maiden, and myself. So, but Join, I don't know, that's not my deal, but just a plug for us. So But I think that's all the time we have, so
All right.
thank you very much, guys, for coming out.
Yeah, thank you.